Out of bed, jump on and join us. We're going live at 11 a.m. like I said.
Braves Country today. We're talking Southern sports. We go live 3 to 5 weekdays right here on WQEE. Braves Country today, Southern sports talk with the voice of Braves Country baseball, Mac McGee. Joined every day from sports analysts from all over Braves Country, talking college football, the NFL, Major League Baseball, and what's trending in the world of sports. Braves Country today. We go live 3 to 5 weekdays right here on WQEE. You're listening to WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key in Noonan, Georgia, home of Braves Country with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks, weekdays, 3 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on The Key and YouTube.com at Braves Country.
You're in Braves Country.
Welcome in, Braves Country. Folks that are out there listening to us on 99.1 FM, Good day to you, and those of you on YouTube, good day to you. As what was it not a great day for everyone in the Braves country? By the way, you'll see the description said JJ was going to join us. Well, all I can tell you is this: much like the Philadelphia Phillies, the last couple of nights in Philadelphia against the Arizona Diamondbacks, he hasn't shown up. So we'll see. I've reached out to him. We'll see what happens. But regardless, we are going to go ahead and fire up the show because we got a lot to get into, a little time to do it, and time is valuable. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the first thing that becomes very obvious in this is that it is extremely ironic for those of us in Braves country, because all we heard after losing to Philadelphia in a 5-game series, mind you, where it's really easy to run into a team that's hot, which I think is what what happened. I also felt like our bats were extremely cold. And whether or not you want to blame it on the layoff, whatever you want to blame it on, I don't really care at this point. I know they've got to fix it. I know that you can't continue to do the same thing over and over and expect different results. And I believe that when it's all said and done, the goal is to go out there and win the championship. And if you're not getting it done, then something has got to change. And I talked about this in our last video, where I believe that, honestly, the Atlanta Braves need to get some fire in that dugout. And it's not just joining up with certain free agents you can bring in. I also believe that you need somebody, and I don't really give a damn who it is at this point, but you need somebody who can go in there and fire up the troops from the managerial side. And I think we might have a lot of complacent personalities in there. So that's number one. That's number one with the bullet, is that Atlanta's got to do that. But what happened to the Phillies? Because the Phillies were supposedly going to march on through to the World Series because they knocked off the big bad wolf, the Atlanta Braves. And that was going to prove to be an easy route because they do not have to face the Dodgers. They didn't have to face the Brewers. No, they were going to have to face the Arizona Diamondbacks. What were they, 84 wins? Somewhere in that neighborhood? And it became kind of ironic because they ran into a team that was very hot themselves, just like last year. A team that nobody believes was the best team in the National League, but got to the World Series, just like last year. And just like last year, they may fall short to the Texas Rangers, but they got themselves a pennant. And you can say and do whatever you want when it comes to Major League Baseball and your accomplishments, but there's a few things that matter when it's all said and done. And I'm not talking about the personal accolades. I'm talking about there's only a few things that really matter. Number one is a World Series championship. We know that. Number two would be a pennant. We all know that. Number three is your division flag. We don't call those pennants, division crowns, division championships. Philadelphia Phillies didn't get any of them. And that's got to be eating at them. And maybe that's why JJ didn't show up today. I don't know. I put it out there for him. He said that he was going to come on, and now he's backstroke. So I'm hoping everything's okay. Considering everything going on in the world, on a serious note, I hope everything is okay. But we will move on and talk about this series because I'm going to give you my thoughts. First of all, I don't think it's that simple, cut and dry to call something a choke. Because this Philadelphia Phillies team showed up in big moments this season, because if they didn't, they wouldn't have gotten to where they are. So I don't know if I'm convinced that it's a choke job, but you do wonder, did they take the Arizona Diamondbacks a little lightly? And I think that's very, very likely. I think you're talking about a situation where the Diamondbacks were not looked upon as the end all that beats all. They were looked upon as a team that got hot, that beat an underachieving Dodgers team, and they're going to get what's coming to them when they face the Phillies, because that raucous crowd. Remember, that's all we heard about? That raucous crowd. And it's the greatest atmosphere. Oh my God, it's so great to watch that. Where the hell was that crowd at? And by the way, there were videos after the game that I'm sure most of y'all have seen where they're interviewing Philly fans and asking them what happened. And they turn on their team quicker than anything I've ever seen. They are still undefeated at being the worst fans in sports. And I know a lot of the fans believe that they're the best fans because they're going to say they're passionate. But they're so quick to turn on them. You never get this from a Philly fan. We lost to the better team. We didn't show up. Hats off to them. Blah, blah. No, everything sucks and you got to tear it down. And, instantly the videos I saw were folks turning on Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, and there was someone else. I'm trying to think of who it was that they were blaming. But those were the main ones, basically saying that we have this $700 million free agents that went 0 for 12. So, as just an outside observer, I don't know why anybody would want to go play for that fan base. I really don't. And you can sit there and say, well, because the crowds, man, they really show up and they're passionate. Crowds show up and are passionate in a lot of areas. You think the Braves' Truist Park is not a raucous sight when things are going well? You're damn right it is. You don't see the Braves fans. Now, there's always a few jerks out there, but you don't see them in the numbers turn on their team like Philadelphia's fan base does. And it really is a shame, because I have met some really good Philadelphia fans, some ones that have been just outstanding, overall knowledgeable fans over the years. But all in all, there's a reason why they have the reputation that they do, and they quickly turn on them. I remember seeing a video in Game 6, and this set the tone for Game 7. In Game 6, there were people filing out of the stadium in the 8th inning. The 8th inning, with their team trailing by 4 runs. There's no way in hell that would happen in Atlanta. We always believe in our offense. Always. They may not come through, but we're there till the bitter end. Yeah, there might be one or two jerks, but I'm talking about there was droves of people going on. And how to everybody in all the chats. We're streaming on a few different platforms today. So good morning to everybody. Good to see you, Goat. But the main thing on this is, what in the world are they doing leaving a stadium in the NLCS Game 6? You're only trailing by 4. If it was 11-1, I get it. You got to beat traffic. 5-1 with that offense? You're trying to tell me they can't stream some hits together, have an incredible comeback, and then let's say it happens. How the hell do you ever look any other fan in the eye when you say, well, I left early because we were trailing by what is literally 4? You're talking about 4 runs in a Major League Baseball game nowadays with home runs. You don't have to get it on a grand slam, a bloop and a blast, a bleeder, a single, bases clearing double. You're tied. I mean, there's so many ways to get back in that game. So I do think that set the tone. I do realize you go into game 7 and they really had a rough go of it because they ran into Brandon Pfaadt, who pitched amazing. But before we go there, where was this series lost? I think you can easily go back to game 4 and say that's where they lost the series. And that part's going to get overlooked by most fans. And that's why we were planning on having JJ here, but he's a no-show like the Philadelphia Phillies in game 5 of game 6. I'm just giving you a hard time, JJ, but truth hurts, baby. Truth hurts. You didn't show. When you get this going in the right direction for the Arizona Diamondbacks, and you get into the game 4, and this Philadelphia Philly team, now realize they're up 2-1. They are up 5-2 going into the bottom of the 7th. They give up the 1 run. It's 5-3. Okay, whatever. And then this is where the doors fell off. They brought in Kimbrel. Really strange they brought him in as early as they did. He's not used to coming into the 8th inning, and he ended up being their ultimate downfall. But they blew their chance at putting a stranglehold on that series, up 5-2 in the 7th, 5-3 going into the bottom of the 8th. And they absolutely fell apart in the bottom of the 8th. You know, the first thing that you get in the 8th, Kimbrels comes on, and you still have a 2-run lead, and you're supposed to have this phenomenal bullpen that everyone kept bragging about. And Craig Kimbrel comes in, he gives up a double to Gurriel. Then Thomas homers to make it. By the way, what a great job by Arizona to bring in Alek Thomas at that point. He hits a 412-foot blast to score Gurriel. The game is now tied. Kimbrel goes and strikes out the next batter, Perdomo. Then Marte singles. Carroll's hit by a pitch. Alvarado comes in, and Marte comes around to score off of Moreno's single. That gets them the 1-run lead. And at that 1-run lead, 6-5, the unsung hero of this entire series that no one really talked about going into it much. But man, Sewald was phenomenal. He really was a big, big acquisition and a unbelievable shutdown closer. He comes in the 9th inning and strikes out the side. And that's bad enough if you're a Philadelphia fan. But he strikes out Marsh, Cave, and then after Schwarber doubled to right, and you're like, uh-oh, here we go. Tying run on second. Trey Turner strikes out swinging. And so then we go into game 6. And game 6, look, they're still in control of the entire series because they won game 5 after having that heartbreaker in game 4. They went out and rode Zach Wheeler to a dominant performance, and they got a 3-2 lead. But what we really found out about the Philadelphia Phillies in 2023 was this. If Zach Wheeler was not on the mound, they were a very average to above average baseball team. They were not a dominant team. And I believe they would have gotten smoked in the World Series had they won game number 7. Because remember, Wheeler came in and pitched the last few innings. We'll get into that in a second. But he wouldn't have been prepared to pitch after using him that much on short rest, etc. You would have had to have wait game 2, probably game 3, to be honest. Give him an extra several days of rest. That probably would have been the only option. So, anyways, we move on from that and we go to game number 6. It's in Philadelphia. And this is a game where you expect, or the Philly fans expected, Aaron Nola to go out and dominate. Now, look, he pitched well against the Braves. I don't know what it is, but he tends to pitch well against the Braves. But Aaron Nola has not been the Aaron Nola of previous years this year. And it showed up in that game 6. You know, this year, regular season, Aaron Nola, he had a 4.46 ERA. He had a 1.15 whip, which tells you there's not a lot of guys on the base paths. But also what it shows you is he was giving up a lot of runs. He gave up 32 home runs this year. 2 more in the postseason, but I'm just going off the regular season numbers. 32 home runs in 193 innings. He pitched 32 games. That means he's giving up a home run every damn night that he goes out there. And that was supposed to be their lockdown second star. I believe Philadelphia is going to let him walk, and I think they're going to go after who they believe is a second ace. They may bring him back, but I believe Philadelphia is going to go make an actual run. Probably at Blake Snell would be my guess. We'll see where Snell ends up. But that's going to be my guess because Philadelphia, Dombrowski, they do not build within. Their answer to everything is throw money at it, and I expect them to do the same. So Nola goes out in game number 6, and he goes 4 1/3 inning, gives up 4 earned runs. It wasn't an awful outing, but it's not what you expect from a big-time situation at home, able to close out a very, I mean, it's barely above average offense in Arizona. They got a lot of holes in that lineup, a lot of holes. But he gave up a home run to Pham in the second. He gave up a home run to Gurriel in the second. And they were quickly down 3-0. Philly scratched back and got a run, made it 3-1. And then they went right back at him and ended up scoring a 4th run in the 5th and then finishing it off in the 7th. 5-1. They could not do anything against that Arizona bullpen. And I think it shocked a lot of people because I think a lot of folks thought that Philadelphia had this great offense and they couldn't be slowed down. And who the hell is Arizona? I'll tell you what, you got to give credit to Merrill Kelly, too. If you watch that game, he was in danger of getting knocked out in that second inning, and he regrouped and ended up firing 5 innings of 1-run ball. Thompson did a great job. Sal Frank did a great job. Ginkel was phenomenal, and then Sewald did Sewald-type things. Came in, clean inning, struck out 2. I don't think a lot of folks understood the acquisition of Paul Sewald being this great move. But I'm telling you, 33-year-old veteran, whose ERA, by the way, in the regular season was 3.12. That's the most dumbfounding part about this. He was traded by Seattle at the deadline. Seattle had enough of him. He was traded by the Seattle Mariners, who were trying to win. The Mariners, you remember at the end of the season, they were right there for the division. not to mention a wild card, the whole 9 yards. They were right there, and they traded away a very good right-handed pitcher, reliever. He was their closer, for God's sakes. He had 21 saves. The funniest part that I didn't realize about this story, do you realize his last outing before he was traded was against Arizona? And it was a save. And Arizona saw something in him. It wasn't a clean inning. He walked one, struck out one. But they saw something in him, and they said, let's go get him. What a great job by the front office of Arizona to add that. So, because I'll tell you what, if they don't have Sewald, that bullpen looks a lot different. I don't know if they, even make the playoffs, much less knock out Milwaukee or the Dodgers. They've gone through the gauntlet now, and now they're heading to the World Series. So game number 6 was just an absolute disaster. Aaron Nola did Aaron Nola type things. I say this all the time. Aaron Nola is a very hittable pitcher unless you have an Atlanta Braves jersey on. You have an Atlanta Braves jersey on, all of a sudden the dude can do no wrong, and he's just firing. I mean, he looks like damn Roy Halladay reinvented. It really is unbelievable every damn time. But against other teams, he does a lot like what we saw in Game 6. So you go to Game 7, and once you get to a Game 7, everybody knows, or they should know, anybody can win a damn Game 7. And that's why you can't let it get there if you're Philadelphia. Because in a 7-game series, much different than a 3-game or a 5-game series, in a 7-game series, the cream should rise to the top. But they go out and they start Ranger Suarez, who honestly was not pitching that poorly. But I did feel like they left him in a little too long. Suarez typically, I'm not talking about a regular season game. I'm talking about in a Game 7 situation. In the playoffs, you got everybody at your disposal. But this just kind of tells me where Rob Thompson was as far as trusting his bullpen. I don't think he trusted very many pieces in that bullpen to get him very far. So he went from Suarez to Hoffman immediately. I mean, that guy right there is essentially a setup guy. Then to Alvarado. By the way, Alvarado got one out. One out. Gave up two hits, gave up a run. That's a huge disappointment for the Phillies. For him to give up, not only give up a run, but he only got one out. So then Wheeler comes in and spells an inning in 2/3, throws 30 pitches off of 2 days rest. All in all, was, when you put it in that lens, he was phenomenal. He was unreal. But you go to Strom, so they build it Suarez to Hoffman to Alvarado, Wheeler to Strom, and that's probably how they had it played out in their head. But I felt like that when I was watching this, I felt like they were trying to squeeze every last drop out of Suarez because they did not want to use anyone other than the pitchers that I just mentioned, and they were trying to figure out a way to get there. And so because of that, they literally left him in, I would say, about an inning too long. If you go to the top of the 5th, Rivera singles to lead it off. Perdomo's sacrifice to the pitcher, and Rivera goes to second. Marte strikes out. I think at that point, they're like, all right, we're going to get through. And then Corbin Carroll with a huge single to center off of Suarez. And look, I understand why they left him in there at that point, because if you've gone that far, you might as well. It's lefty-lefty matchup. There's 2 outs. But he gives up the run there, and then Hoffman comes in. Corbin Carroll, by the way, is he not fun to watch? Corbin Carroll steals second, and then Moreno singled to right. Carroll scores. Moreno was thrown out at second, what was basically, I think he thought he was needing to do it to make sure they scored that run, but he did not really need to do it that way, because Carroll was going to score. Moreno did not need to get caught in the pickle between first and second, but that's how that inning ended. They now have a 1-run lead. It's 3-2. They're cruising along. And then Alvarado gives up a single to Perdomo in the 7th. Marte doubles to right. Perdomo gets to third. Good defensive relay, by the way, to keep that second and third. And now you've got Carroll hits a sac fly to right. They make it 4-2. And the way the Phillies offense just did not show up in those last 2 games, it really felt like that 2-run lead was more like a 7-run lead. And you get into the final couple of innings. By the way, if you look at this this is game 7. Schwarber 1 for 3. And look, the hardest thing to do in baseball is to hit it and hit it safely. So I'm not going to kill guys for not getting hits, but it's very glaring to a Philadelphia fan when you see Trey Turner go 0 for 4, Bryce Harper go 0 for 4, and Nick Castellanos go 0 for 4. Their 3 biggest bats all postseason long. And if you add in Real Muto and you add in Schwarber, they only got 2 more hits apiece. The big 5 on that team. They get 2 base hits in that final game. 2 for 19 in a game 7 against a rookie pitcher, mind you. Brandon Pfaadt goes out there, and it was an impressive outing by Pfaadt. Absolutely impressive outing by Pfaadt. But Brandon Pfaadt goes out there and goes 4 innings, 2 earned runs. I felt like they probably could have gotten another inning or so out of him. But they believed in their bullpen, and they played it like an orchestra. Mantiply to Thompson to Sal Frank to Ginkel, Sewald. Talked about this earlier, but if you're just joining us, those guys were absolutely phenomenal. And Ginkel, to me, was the glue, because for him to go in and go 1 2/3 really set the tone, because Sal Frank comes in, gets 1/3 of an out, really more of a specialist, and they have to go get Ginkel when they're in hot water. And Ginkel not only gets them out of that inning, but then gives them another inning, setting him up going into the 9th with the 2-run lead. And the way Sewald was pitching, you just really did not feel like the bottom of that lineup was going to get a base hit. And what I would have liked to have asked JJ had he shown up, earlier in the game, they pinch hitted Pache for Rojas. And I don't get that, because I don't feel like that gave you any kind of an advantage. And Rojas has the speed where if he gets on, he can cause problems. Pache did not get a base hit. He did get a walk. I'll give him credit on that, but I thought that was an odd play. And then you get to the final part of the game. Jake Cave is your pinch hitter. I saw some fans on Twitter and whatnot wanting to kill Jake Cave for not coming through. Come on. You're down to 1 out. This is the guy on the end of your bench, and you're going to put it all on him. Because in their mind, in their delusional mind, they think that Schwarber's going to hit a 2-run jack. And look, he could. Schwarber's a hell of a damn batter. We get that. Schwarber also hits under 200. So just as much a chance of him hitting a home run, there's a more likely chance he either strikes out and complains to the umpire and says it's his fault, or he pops it up. So it wasn't a foregone conclusion. He was a part of 5 guys. They're 5 main guys who went a combined 2 for 19 in Game 7. You can't have that. And as much as we had to hear about how the Braves bats didn't show up and how the Braves didn't do this and the Braves didn't do that, I'd be lying if I said us in Braves country weren't smiling. I mean, to basically see what happened to Philly is almost the exact same thing to happen to Atlanta. The only difference is Atlanta got jobbed in a 5-game series. They also got the advantage of Philadelphia getting an extra day off. Because if you remember why that was big, not to mention the fact they just got to reset themselves because of the dopey way that Major League Baseball has done what they've done with the postseason. But the reason why that is big is because you could go in a Game 1 as they did with Suarez on the mound and be extremely aggressive with your bullpen because you know you have the next day off, and then they were going to have Zach Wheeler, who still contends to be one of the best there is in baseball. I don't know if there's many right-handers I would rather have on the mound. This coming from a Braves fan who can't stand the Phillies, can't stand the Mets, and that's all Zach Wheeler's ever been. And I don't know if there's a better right-hander in baseball today in a playoff situation than Zach Wheeler. He's got that stuff that plays. That dopey way that they set up the playoffs is one of the things that really puts the death nail on you. It really does. It puts an absolute death nail on you. And when you go out there time after time after time, and you see the way that the Philadelphia Phillies did not show up in this series. If you go to Game 6, by the way, so they lose Game 7, of course, that's the one everyone focuses on. I still contend that the game that they lost this whole series in was game number 4. You had a commanding lead. You didn't shut it down. And I think a lot of Philly fans would say that it was poorly executed. But you go to game number 6, and that was an absolute disaster as well. They only scored 1 run off of 6 hits. Schwarber did walk twice. He was 0 for 2, but I still count walks just as important as a base hit. So it's not like he didn't do anything. But Turner, 0 for 4. Harper, 0 for 3. He did get a walk. Castellanos, 0 for 4. Their big guys didn't show up again. And it was back-to-back games in the bank, as we have been told time and time again, that this is just an unbelievable atmosphere, and you can't go in there and beat them. They didn't just beat you, they shut you down. I think Philly fans could eat this a little better if somehow they went in and they won or lost both games, but they were high-scoring affairs, and the pitching just didn't have it. and tip your cap, et cetera, et cetera. And I get that because I would be right there with them. But the fact that the Philadelphia Phillies did not score in these 2 games, they scored 3 runs in 2 games, 3 runs in 18 innings. One of the things that surprised me the most, Alec Bohm was really the only one that really showed up in that 2-game series, which is essentially what it was. You need one damn win at home, and I'm telling you, this is going to linger. And I think most Philly fans think it's going to motivate them, blah, blah, blah. I think this is going to linger next year. It's going to be a sour taste in their mouth, just like the way the Mets folded against the Padres. I do wonder how the Braves are going to come out next year. And the greatest part of this entire situation, if you're an Atlanta Braves fan, do you realize we open the season next year? Opening day is in Philadelphia for the Atlanta Braves. You know how bad that would have sucked to have to watch them raise an NLCS or even worse, a World Series banner? Instead, it's going to be a whole lot of, You didn't even get a pennant. Let me see. I got some questions here. Let me hit the ones on our YouTube chat first. Got Texas in game 1. Who I haven't really looked at it. I haven't looked at the pitching matchups. I haven't planning on going over that kind of stuff tomorrow. But the thing that I like the most, if you're looking at Braves news, y'all might have missed this. Pierce Johnson, it was announced, has signed a 2-year extension. And to me, that's going to be huge. So Pierce Johnson, and look, I know a lot of folks are probably like, whatever, because I saw some really negative comments when the news broke. I don't think people realize how good Pierce Johnson was. And to get him in essentially the prime of his career to sign a 2-year deal, and what was it, 7.5 that he signed for? Eovaldi versus Gallen. If we're just talking about game 1, I would tend to side with Texas. Gallen, to me, has not shown up. That's going to be the biggest thing for them. But getting sidetracked a little bit. Pierce Johnson signing with the Atlanta Braves that was one of the pieces I thought might walk. And the fact that he was willing to stay tells you, A, he likes it there. That's number 1. And number 2, they got a really good back of the bullpen arm for the next few days. Next few years, excuse me. So it was 2 years. It was originally reported as 7.5 per year, but it looks like it's 14.25 for 2. So just over 7 a year. And of course, as soon as the World Series ends, we're going to start seeing a lot of other deals breaking. And we'll be doing this every time that there's a big deal done by the Braves. We will pop in here. But I'm looking at it big picture for the Braves, and you get Pierce Johnson nailed down. And we talked about some of the other moves that they may or may not do. I think this tells you the writing on the wall. Thankfully, Thankfully, I believe Colin McHugh is gone. Because if they're spending $7 a year on Pierce, they're not going $6 on Colin. It probably means that Kirby Yates is gone too. And we went over his numbers the other day. Basically, if you keep him, it's going to cost you an extra $4.5 million because he has a 1.25 to cut him, and it's 5.75 to keep him. So your big question is, are you going to find pitchers of that caliber at 4.5? And that's to me is that one and the Eddie Rosario one is the biggest question marks that I have for the 2024 offseason. As far as I don't really have a strong feeling on which way they're going to go. I know what I would like to see. I would like to see them move on from Eddie Rosario. $9 million and there's no buyout. So they just kick him. And assuming Charlie Morton retires, and I think there's a good chance that he does, that's $29 million off the jump. And if you want to take it into that frame, into that focus, and say, all right, we kick the $29 million and you get rid of Kirby Yates, then you're up to 33 plus. And then, of course, all the other numbers. Realistically, we're talking about a team that would have quite a bit of money to spend during the offseason. They also have quite a bit of holes. Let's not act like we're going to bring everybody back in our mind and be able to spend all this money on other players. There's going to be some holes. There is no Kyle Wright for 2024. He's done. Shoulder surgery. Bye. There's a good possibility that Soroka's gone, and if he's not gone, my God, what can you expect from him? But back to put a stamp on the original subject, and then we'll circle back to the Braves. The biggest question, because we put it in the headline, did the Phillies choke or were the Diamondbacks the better team? The Phillies choked. The Philadelphia Phillies choked. And that might motivate them to be even better next year. But if Braves fans look at themselves in the eye and look at it realistically, the Braves choked in 2023. They did. 2022, I felt like they ran out of gas. 23, everything was set up. And I don't know if they were too tight going in. I don't know what the answer is. If you win the division next year, how the hell do you fix this? Because obviously not playing in the first round has a cost. But at the same token, you could just as easily get bounced in a 3-game series and be pissed off about it. Like the Mets did. So the answer is not, well, just make sure you don't win the division. Let's go. No, because you could get that same issue going into a 3-game series where there's even less room for error. So I still think you want to win the division, but they've got to fix something. They got to fix something in that clubhouse. I don't know if it's either one or two things with Snicker. Either A, he's got them so wound up, balled up like a tight little knot, that he does not allow them to just go out there and play, and he's putting pressure on them. Or he's doing the exact opposite and has them going in going, guys, it'll be fine. You'll figure it out. And the next thing you know, you're down 2-1, and the next thing you know, you're bounced. Something's going on. And the biggest thing that managers do in 2023 over any other time in baseball, it's manage the guys in the clubhouse. manage their personalities, et cetera, et cetera. And I know they're not getting rid of Snicker. You know they're not getting rid of Snicker. Snicker's not walking away. We have Snicker for 2023. It just is what it is. Whether you like him, love him, whatever. I'm a little bit in the middle. There are things that I love about Snicker. There are things that drives me nuts about him. But I talk about this a lot during the broadcast during the season that drives me crazy that you never see the competitive fire in his belly in 162 games. And I don't like that. I want to see a manager raise hell when hell needs to be raised. I don't want him to overdo it. I don't want him to be at the point where he's like doing it, and the next thing you know, everybody's rolling their eyes, going, "Here he goes again." You got to pick your spots. Did Bobby Cox do a little too much? Yeah, he did. I feel like there was times that he did what he did, getting kicked out of games, and it didn't help the team at all because he just did it 2 days before. But the thing about Bobby Cox, and once again, he only won one championship too, so I can't sit here and act like Bobby Cox was, he wasn't Casey Stengel, okay? So let's just calm that down. But the thing about Bobby Cox was you knew he gave a damn. And there are times, not just watching him in the dugout or not watching him because the camera's never on because he's never doing anything. It's not just the post game, but it's also this, and this is the part that hits me the most. If you look at it in a nutshell, when he is being interviewed day in and day out, and I'm talking about April 24th, June 17th, July 20th, late August, early October, it doesn't matter. He gets the same crap from him over and over. And it's basically the steady hand. We're going to be okay. Don't overreact. It's just a loss. Blah, blah, blah. And he said some things in the post-game interview after we went down 2-1 that you didn't like to hear. And one of the things that he said, I get where his mindset was, but I didn't like the delivery. He said, well, I like where we're at. I like our spot. We got 2 really good pitchers going the next 2 nights. I like our spot. I would have liked to have seen more of a reaction of, we got to get it going. We got to find a way to get the offense rolling. We got to do something because this isn't working. That's what I would have liked to have seen. But instead, what we got was a bunch of gobbledygook about how everything's going to be all right. Well, it wasn't all right. And I go back to what one of the Braves fans said to one of the beat writers shortly after we were eliminated. And he threw it in his face, and the beat writer got ticked off. And he tried to come back with a bunch of different scenarios that basically was saying, well, no one could see this coming. But the guy put it in the simplest terms that anybody could put it. And he was right. Whether the beat writer wanted to admit it or not, he was right. Guarantee he admitted it behind closed doors. But on social media, he's still tongue-bathing the organization, so he doesn't want to say anything wrong. But, I mean, you could have just let the guy you could have just not answered the guy, but he did answer him. The guy's comment was he was talking about the pitching and how bad of a mess we were in when Elder went out there and got blown up. And that was really the game that lost us the series, if you think about it, because we were not prepared to have a third starter in that series. If we had a capable third starter in that game, what if the Braves win that game? And if they win that game, maybe the Braves are a little more relaxed going into game 4. And maybe, look, Spencer Strider was phenomenal. Can't take anything away from him. He didn't get the win, but that's not because he gave up 8 runs. It's because he gave up 3. And the Braves didn't do a damn thing at the plate. But he said, we were told all along, all summer long, the pitching was going to be okay, and it was not okay. And that's as simple as you can put it in any term. We were told it was going to be okay, and it was not okay. It wasn't. And you could see it unfolding. And we talked about it, and this is not revisionist history because we talked about it on this very damn show. Going into the deadline, they need to go get a starter. What the hell are they doing? You know, Texas went out there and got Jordan Montgomery, and look where they're at. I know they also got Max Scherzer, so not everything works out. But look, they showed they were willing to go after. You're trying to tell me Jordan Montgomery being added to that Atlanta Braves staff at the deadline doesn't put us in the World Series? It absolutely does. Because if you could have rolled out in a 5-game series Strider, Max Fried, Jordan Montgomery, Strider, Max Fried, you're not beating that team 3 out of 5 times. You're just not. You're not going to score enough runs in those 45 innings to outscore the Atlanta runs in 45. You're just not. And you see how damn good Jordan Montgomery is going to, when he becomes a free agent, he is going to get himself a bag. He has just, I've been more and more impressed by Jordan Montgomery every step of the way. And I see now why Yankee fans were so ticked off when New York traded him. I'm a little surprised St. Louis got rid of him. That tells you St. Louis is planning on rebuilding. As you let Jordan Montgomery walk away, the only thing I can say to that is you're not planning on winning next year. That cat has been unbelievable. But that's the addition that all the Braves fans wanted. And all you got from these writers were little smart, snarky remarks. Oh, what'd you want to do? Bring in Lance Lynn? Ho, 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 look how that turned out. No! You can't grab the worst of the worst and say, hey, glad we didn't bring him in. Look at the Rangers. They went out and they got Jordan Montgomery, and look where they are. Look at the Diamondbacks. They go out and they get Sewald, along with a couple other moves they made. We don't have time to get into all that today. But look where they are. Aggressive moves for October pitching is what's going to win you championships. You saw it time after time after time after time in the late 90s, early 2000s with the New York Yankees runs. They never sat on their laurels. They were always aggressive at the deadline. Same thing with the Red Sox. All those runs they made. They didn't stand pat. Go, we're fine. Let's bring in Brad Hand. No, they were aggressive. Brad Hand is someone you bring along with other opportunities. But the biggest problem that the Braves have, that we have had for several years, and yet it worked out in 2021. I'm going to call a spade a spade. We got lucky. We got lucky to get lightning in a bottle. That doesn't, as they say, lightning doesn't strike twice. So you got to be more aggressive on getting talent and getting what I call dogs. Ones that are going to walk in there and go, I'm here, let's get this damn thing. Jordan Montgomery is one of those dogs. Sewald appears to be one of those dogs. But you look at, man, I'm telling you, I've been more and more impressed every time I see this Ginkel kid pitch. But to win in October, you have to have a great mix of veterans and youngsters. We know this because in 2021, we had the Duvals, the Jocks, the Solaires, even Eddie got hot. Everyone forgets why Eddie got hot. Eddie got hot because Eddie Rosario was hitting in front of Freddie Freeman. That's why Eddie Rosario got hot. Everybody forgets that part. He also got very cold, and by the time we were ending the World Series, Jorge Soler was our leadoff hitter. But you have to have the right mix, and it can't just be, we're going to go with the pitching that we've got all year long. It'll be fine. The other thing that it helps to do, too, when you bring in new pitching at the deadline, especially if it's a stud like Montgomery, it rejuvenates everybody. All right, we're going for it. Instead, the feel of it at the end of the deadline, where we absolutely did nothing except bring in relief pitchers from the Colorado Rockies and a flyer on Taylor Hearns that lasted, what did that last, 48 hours? All it did was just show that we are content with being the best team in baseball during the regular season. But October, well, it's going to be a crapshoot, so you never know. And that's exactly how they played it. That is exactly how they played it. And it's disappointing that it ended that way. And I know Philly fans are very in the same spot that we are. And trust me, Philly fans, I'm going to let you know this right now. It doesn't go away. See, because you had the pennant to lean on last year. And so you came back and you said, we're going to get it done. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Things are going to be different this year. And then you go out and you have an even worse ending to your season. And that's essentially what the Braves did. I don't know if you could, 2022 and 2023 really feel about the same. But you can argue that 23 was worse because we had a very good reason why we did not show up in 2022. Max got sick. Strider was injured. The whole 9 yards. You can't keep pointing to those excuses every damn year. Sometimes you just choked. In 2023, the Braves choked. In 2023, the Phillies choked. And trust me, Philly fans, it doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. I know a lot of Philadelphia sports fans believe that they are the mecca of sports. But if you look at the grand scheme of things, been playing 140 years and you've won 2 World Series, so this is new to you. It does not go away. None of these ever go away. I'm still pissed off about the 1997 Livan Hernandez game that Eric Gregg gave him the damn strike zone the size of the Grand Canyon. I'm still pissed off at Jim Leyritz and will never forgive him. They don't go away because you look at it as opportunities missed. I'll still say this till the day I go. The most difficult thing to do in sports is to win a World Series. And it's become a little more difficult now. You could argue that, well, it's not as hard because, look, Arizona just got in and then you can get hot. Okay, I get that part of it. But if you're the best team, it's still the hardest damn thing to do is to make sure that momentum heads into October. When do you take the days off at the end? When do you rest guys? Are you resting them too much? Are you not resting them enough? Well, you don't want them tired. The whole crap. They got to fix the postseason. We'll do a video in the very near future about fixing that postseason. Because I've got some ideas. I've got it laid out. We'll definitely do that. We're also doing Once Upon a Pastime series coming up. We're doing a 7-part series on the World Series on the Once Upon a Pastime series. So keep an eye out for that. Those will be drops. And play-by-play, pitch-by-pitch of the World Series. And God, dog, this is going to be a fun one to do. Rangers, Diamondbacks. Friday night, 8 o'clock. Saturday night, 8 o'clock. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 8 o'clock. And then, of course, if necessary, once again, Friday night and Saturday night, 8 o'clock. So there are no Sunday games. There are no Thursday games. And both of these teams play under a roof. So we don't even have to worry about getting rained out. We'll see you first pitch, 8 Eastern, Friday night. You don't want to hear it, Philly fans, but you choked. Braves choked too. And that's something that we all have to agree. We all have to accept. Sometimes your guys don't show up. Y'all have a great day. And if you think there's any way in hell that I'll ever get over the fact that all those division titles in a row with Bobby Cox, we got one World Series championship. It never goes away. Have a great day, y'all.
Goodbye, sweetheart, well, it's time to go. We're back tomorrow with another show. Well, unless we're fired, we'll talk to you then. Goodbye, sweetheart, goodbye. Goodbye.
Guys and gals, it's time to go. We'll see you on the next show.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Thanks for listening to Braves Country with Mac McGee and the Armchair Quarterbacks on 99.1 FM WQEE, The Key in Noonan, Georgia, and simulcasting on youtube.com/@Braves Country. Braves Country comes your way weekdays, 3 p.m. Eastern to 5 p.m. Eastern. Please follow, like, and subscribe today. Armchair Quarterback Radio, your first choice for Southern sports.
Something of the 5th of September. Something of the 5th of September. She said a lot that I can't remember. Something of the 5th. Can I get another cigarette, please? Can I get another cigarette, please? Yeah, I know I live to regret it. Just give me another cigarette, please. Can I get another cigarette, please?
You're listening to WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key in Noonan, Georgia.
Well, the season's finally here.
The Armchair Quarterbacks are back. Saturdays, 10 a.m., you'll be tailgating with the Armchair Quarterbacks. Mac McGee, Joey and Tones, and the rest of the Armchair Quarterbacks live, 10 a.m. Saturdays this fall, talking college football, SEC, ACC, Big Ten, the NFL, fantasy football advice, and our picks against the spread. Right here on Braves Country HD, 99.1 FM, WQEE.
Yeah, the Armchair